At this point, we have talked about glycogen as being a polysaccharide that is made up of the monosaccharide glucose. We're going to talk a little bit about how it is a source of energy within the body, but we're also going to talk about what happens when you're not able to form glycogen the way you're supposed to. All right, so as we said in our introduction, glycogen is a polymer of glucose. So you have a bunch of glucose monosaccharides that are repeated. It is stored in limited amounts in the muscle and the liver for when it's needed. Glycogenesis is the synthesis of glycogen from glucose. So when glucose is in excess, you're going to start to form the storage form of glucose, which is glycogen. You only make glycogen when you have high levels of glucose. When those glycogen stores are full and you can't fit any more glycogen in the muscle and liver, that extra glucose gets converted into fats and then can be stored indefinitely. As we all know, we are very good at storing fats. All right, so let's talk about some normal glucose levels in the blood. Normally, we're looking at about 70 to 110 milligrams per deciliter. That is a normal range for glucose. Above that and below that, we have different conditions. If you're hypoglycemic or you have hypoglycemia, hypo means below or under. You are below normal value, so you're going to be under 70. If you're hyperglycemic, hyper is over or above, you're going to be above 110. And each of those is going to have different health consequences associated with it. Glycosuria is when you have glucose in the urine. So oftentimes when you have above normal amounts of glucose in your blood, that glucose will get excreted through the urine, through the kidneys. And so it's a really simple test if we do a urine test with our keto sticks, and we talked about these previously. We can test for the presence of glucose in the urine. It's non-invasive. You get a very quick result, and we can figure out if a patient is potentially suffering from undiagnosed or untreated or mistreated diabetes if they're not being treated, if it's not under control. If you remember back from our discussion on carbohydrates, the keto sticks work by measuring the glucose levels, and they have an oxidizing agent that is going to oxidize glucose. And when it oxidizes it, it's going to form a colored product. And the darker the color gets indicates the more glucose is present in the urine. So it's that oxidation reaction that we talked about earlier this semester. Insulin is a hormone that's produced by the pancreas, and its whole job in life is to regulate blood sugar levels. So if you have excess glucose in the blood, it's going to make sure that we start to go into storage form. We start to store that glucose as glycogen, or we start to break down our glucose. In type 1 diabetes, patients don't make insulin, so we're going to have to give them injections after they eat so that they're able to store glucose in the form of glycogen. You don't have super high glucose concentrations. In type 2 diabetes, your insulin isn't working properly, so you're going to really have to work on controlling your diet and making sure that you are within that normal range of 70 to 110 milligrams per deciliter for your blood glucose levels.